All right, Erica, thanks very much, and good evening on a great night for hockey, everyone. Dave Fisher from USA Hockey with you as we conclude the series of teleconferences on the World Cup of Hockey. Of course, the U.S. roster just announced, as I'm sure everyone is aware. Our call today, this format will be fairly simple. We have our general manager, Dean Lombardi, and our head coach, John Tortorella, with us. You'll hear from them in just a moment. Paul Holmgren, assistant general manager, Jim Johansson, director of hockey operations, also on the call. If there are any questions for them, myself and our executive director of USA Hockey, Dave Logan, are in Washington, D.C. tonight and for Hockey Day on the Hill. Culmination tonight was a game for charity between the lawmakers and the lobbyists this morning. Had a chance, Dave did, to join Gary Bettman, Ted Leonsis, and Michelle LeGrand to talk about youth hockey and all the great things happening across the country in testimony before Congress. And tonight, of course, the World Cup of Hockey roster announcement concludes just a terrific day for our sport. Without any further ado, I would like to turn it over to our general manager, Dean Lombardi, for some comments on the news today. Dean?
Just a couple of things. First off, as I said in August, this has been clearly one of the highest honors that I've been granted to be general manager of my country's team. As far as the process, I think this is the first time that I've ever been engaged as a leader of a group like this. I didn't realize how difficult it could be, but the difficulty comes from a good problem. We have a lot of talented character players to choose from, and it's very difficult to even think of leaving certain players off. Secondly, I think it's difficult because given the gravity of the obligation to our country, that it is imperative that we get this right, or more, importantly, that the process, that we leave no stone unturned, and that we clearly do the best that we can do. But up to this point, we're extremely proud of the players that we've selected, and we really look forward to the next couple months to rounding out this roster from a field that's going to make it even more difficult. But like I said, in a lot of ways, that's a good problem.
All right, Dean, thanks very much. And now I'd like to turn it over to our head coach, John Tortorella. John?
Well, just coming in behind Dean, it is a tremendous honor to first of all be selected to get involved in this process. And to this date, it's been probably one of the most stimulating things I've been involved with in dealing with Dean and the whole management group with JJ in going through this process of trying to find the right players to make it the right team. So an absolute honor. Really looking forward to continue with the process coming up and bringing it right into September and just playing in such a great tournament. So it is total honor, and really excited about the opportunity of keep growing and see what this team is and get playing in September.
All right, George, thanks very much. And Dean talked about the tough job it is, just one number maybe to put things in perspective. In 1996-97, the year the U.S. won the first World Cup, there were 146 Americans played at least one game in the NHL. Last year that number was at 236, and obviously our objective at USA Hockey is to have that number to continue to rise. Before we get to your questions, just a couple other things, matter of a couple of informational bits. The Patty Kazmaier Memorial Award top 3 finalists, we will be releasing those tomorrow. That's the top women's player in Division I in the NCAA, the equivalent of the Hobie Baker Memorial Award on the men's side, so look for that. We appreciate your coverage on the women's side, and we're also excited at USA Hockey to be hosting the IHF Under-18 Men's World Championship in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and the beautiful Ralph Engelstad Arena is the main site. That's coming up April 14 through 24. So just a couple of notes there. And now we'll bring in Erica, our operator. And Erica, let's take some questions.
Certainly. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question on the phone lines, that is the star and 1. And we'll go first to the site of Larry Lage from the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Question for Dean Lombardi. Talk about having Ablocator on the team and Kessel off for now?
Only have so many slots. I think in terms of what Justin has done, safe to say that every player brings something to the table. Critical part of our team is going to be the mix. I think it's look at Justin Abdicator. This is a kid that's get better. He's very difficult to play against, and only going to get better. And as far as like I say, you can say, well, why'd you leave Bobby Ryan off, or why'd you leave Justin Falk off? Well, you only got so many slots right now that we were prepared to go to, so it's not just Phil Kessel. On the positive side, that we thought Abdicator clearly should be in the first group.
Thank you.
All right, we got quite a bit of background noise. I don't know if somebody's in a tough spot, but if you can help us there and mute your phone when you're not on, that would be helpful. And I know certainly there's going to be a lot of questions about. You probably have a lot of questions about who's not on the roster. I think it's better if we stick to who's on the roster, and that'll be easier because our guys just can't possibly go through every player, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Erica, back to you.
Okay, and we'll go next to the site of Kevin Allen with USA Today.
Hi, this question is for Dean. Actually, two questions. First of all, Dean, what's the process and the timeline for naming a captain?
You know what? To be honest with you, I'm not as concerned with letters. I think Paul Holmgren, Berkey, and JJ and I, we started to kind of micromanage this back in August and impress upon some of these players that this leadership is not going to be defined by letters per se. That, and I think you've heard me talk about this also a couple of times, when there's a transition to a degree in leadership. It's not that you're in any way faulting any leadership in the past, but I think there needs to be a transition and understanding of that, given where some of these players are in their career. And that was one of the things. We have met with a number of players, again, and started this in August. So quite frankly, I know it's a cliche, but it's true. We don't need just 2 or 3 leaders. We're expecting a boatload of guys to fulfill that role in terms of being leaders and being accountable to each other. I'm not too concerned about the timeline of that. I'm more concerned about us getting the message to these players as started back in August, and actually on a number of the phone calls that I had today, and I know what Paul Holmgren had in Berkey with a number of players, that was the theme. That so we have to continue that. And so naming captains now or giving out letters is not what it's all about. Filling them every chance we get to in fact put them in their hearts and not just on a letter. So it's not a hurry for me. I'm more concerned about these guys understanding the obligation they have in terms of embracing this role as a leader in getting this done. So
and then Dean, the second question I had, obviously for the Olympic team, Bufflin got a lot of discussion, and he didn't make that team. But I wondered with the rink smaller for the World Cup here, whether his physical presence was kind of putting him over the top and sort of put him on this team, because I thought I remembered you talking about you wanted to have a little bigger physical presence in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail, but this is probably a really good question for Paul Holmgren, because Paul did a tremendous amount of work on this in terms of, Buff's role on the team and him fitting in. So I think, Homer, why don't you handle that question?
Sure. Yeah, Kevin, if you had a chance to watch Dustin all this year, he's really taken his game to another level. He's clearly a better player leading up to the World Cup than he was going into the Olympic, picking of the Olympic team back in 2014. He's clearly, and all of our guys that have been following him above where he was at. He's trimmed down. He's made more of a commitment. He's become a better pro. Everybody you talk to that deals with him on a daily basis says the same thing. So this is a real, for me, a real positive addition to our team, not only because of his size and his physical attributes, but also because of the way he can play the game. And to be honest with you, the fact that he can play defense and or forward.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, let's send it over to Toronto in the room there and take a couple questions. Guys in Toronto?
Hi, it's Scott Burnside from ESPN.com. Dean, is there a way to describe how you hope this team will play in terms of its style, given the first 16 that you've named? What kind of team is this going to be? What kind of style do you hope they'll play?
When we met with John and decided we were going that route, we talked about that to a degree, but I think John's a smart guy in terms of John has an MO, but he's also smart enough to adjust to his personnel. But that being said, this all ties in with the idea that the style has to reflect what's most important, that players accept their identity, play their role, and have that competitive edge that comes from playing with your country. We get that in place. John can play a 1-4, 2-2, 2-2-1, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But we have to focus on those intangibles and then let John do what he does best. And I have an idea of what John is thinking, but I don't think Alexander the Great gave away his plans when he was at Gaugamela, so we're not going to do that right now.
All right, another one in Toronto.
Dean, Sean Rourke from NHL.com here. I was wondering if you could just kind of talk a little bit about the philosophy of naming all three goalies in the first go-around. Some teams have done it. Some teams only named two. For your team and for what you needed to accomplish, what was the thought process behind putting all three goalies out there in the first round?
Probably, in all honesty, it goes back to what I guess I said in my opening statement, that we felt pretty secure on who our three goalies were, and this just gave us, so we think it's excellent, make no mistake. But there wasn't as much gray as to who those positions were going to be filled by. And I just think this allowed us to take the time necessary to ensure we get the mix right by having that other slot open. It's like I really feel, and we've talked about this, I think we're going to have to do more work leading up to this next group than we ever did up to this point. And the other thing, too, is I think we're going to have more of an opportunity to really dissect this in terms of the timing, other people's responsibilities, and where the players are. So it's basically a way of being secure on who those three players were and making sure we, like I said, look under every nook and cranny and try and get this right. So.
All right, Erica, let's bring it back to you for some questions on the phone.
Certainly. We'll go next to the site of Chad Graff with St. Paul Pioneer. Please go ahead.
So, Dean, just from a USA Hockey perspective, how have you seen Zach Parise and Ryan Suter's role evolve, and what do you expect from them come September?
Well, seeing how this is Minnesota and they're Minnesota boys, and Homer's here, so Homer, why don't you get that one?
Zach and Ryan have both been involved with the national teams, the Olympic teams over the course of their careers, and they've always brought the competitiveness to the game and their skill level to the game. Now they've evolved. They're sort of elder statesmen, if you will, in our program, the USA Hockey program. And you know what? You don't get many opportunities of this. This is an opportunity to win the World Cup of hockey. And given their age, and not that they're old, but it doesn't last forever. And this is a great opportunity for both Ryan and Zach to step up to the plate and lead their country to a gold medal here.
Okay, Erica.
And we'll go next to the site of Dan Rosen with NHL.com.
Yeah, this is a question for John. Torts, you were there in Vancouver when it was close. Do you see the need, and I think need is the key word here, for this generation of U.S. player to have a signature win, the way the last generation did in '96, the way the generation did before that in '80? I mean, does this generation need that signature win?
Well, that's all you think about. That's all I have thought about in the interview process with Homer and Dean and Berkey and with this opportunity. That's what you're thinking about, is to be the best. And I'm not sure if it's a need or the word to use is signature. I think that's the way you have to think all the time in this type of situation. And this is going to be the best players in the world, and we have 13 of them now named to the U.S. team. That's their thought right now, that they're going to be part of it, and the only thing you are thinking about is how you get it done. And that's the mindset that I'm sure when this season's over and we have our team picked completely, that's going to be the mindset that we work on as we build towards to September. So, Danny, that's the only way you can think about it, is winning.
Thanks.
Tortzen, I know you meant 16, but we just didn't reduce the roster in case you're playing along.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Let's go back to Toronto. If there's any more questions there, guys.
Yes, this is Pierre LeBrun from ESPN and TSN. Dean, you mentioned Alexander the Great. He knew his enemy. The debate with USA Hockey over the years was, do we build a team to beat Canada, or do we build a team that has the balance to be competitive and beat all the teams in the tournament? I know it sounds dumb, but I know that's been the case. What's your thought on that?
It's not dumb. I mean, it's almost like the logic of it defines itself. Let's get real here. Canada's always been the mark. History speaks for itself. You look in the National Hockey League, and so much is defined by Canada. So I think it's safe to say that they're clearly the favorites, and they always are, as they should be. So if we're in it to win this thing, it's not illogical to say you better be prepared to beat them. So I guess, I don't know if your question is, well, do you balance it out to beat the European team or whatever, but I think it's like anything else. They're clearly the best, and so you better be prepared to beat them. So, no, I don't think you're wrong at all. It's not illogical.
All right, we'll stick with Toronto. If there's anything else there again. All right, Erica, anything more from you?
We do have a couple more questions on the phone. We have,
okay.
We'll go to the site of Guillaume from La Francois from La Presse.
Yeah, hi. Question is for Dean. Max Pacioretty is one of the forwards that were named today on the team. He's being part of the Montreal Canadiens team that might be a bit disappointing this year, given the expectations on them. How much did you have to look past that not too good collective season from Montreal and Pacioretty as well, who might not be producing to the level that some people were expecting?
Whenever you micro, and this is why you hire good people. I mean, Homer, certainly I have an answer for that, but the guy who did most of the micro on Max was Homer. So why don't you handle that one, Homer? Because
Max, in his mind, I'm sure he's a little bit disappointed with the season too, but probably more to the point where his team is right now than his individual stats. So, Montreal, they started out so good, and then their goalie goes down, and they've had a hard time lately, and they've fallen in the standings. But Max is a guy that we've continued to watch. He's one of the better left wingers in our game. He brings size, he brings speed, he brings skill, and he can score. So a lot of times you don't just put it on the current season. You go by the body of work. Max has been a good player for USA Hockey in past events, and we know he will be again this year for us in the World Cup.
All right, thank you very much.
And we'll go next to the site of Michael Halford from NBC Sports. Please go ahead.
Yeah, this is a question for Dean. I was just wondering how big an influence or an influence at all you think it would have been if you could have had some of the North American young stars guys available, because a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, obviously having a fantastic year, I would assume he probably would have been in the mix for a full national team spot. And then, John, maybe if I could get a comment from you, too, because you've got three of the guys in Columbus that are on that young stars team, and Seth Jones and Ryan Murray and Brandon Saad.
Well, I mean, it's no sense, really thinking about it because it's beyond your control. I mean, so it really, once you get the rules, what good does it do to fret about it? It is what it is. That said, like I said, going forward here, we got some tough choices to make. So we have our hands full with the talent we have. And I think on the other side of the coin, you look at it and you look at that group, that looks like it could end up being a pretty, imposing generation. So it's actually good in a sense because it highlights, I think, a segment or a generational facet that's coming forward that looks pretty potent. I think I'd put it in the other context. I'd like to be GM of this team in 4 years when those kids come through. So how about that?
Torts?
Yeah, you just look at the National Hockey League, just the young kids that have come into this league and how exciting it is for the future. But as Dean said, you can't even go there. There's no sense of trying to whet your appetite with that because it's a rule. And there are a lot of good players that Homer, Berkey, Dean, and the whole staff there that still have to look at to fill out our team. And the young group there, I think that's going to be a dangerous team. And then moving forward, what are they in another 4 years? It's scary, but that's good for hockey in general. But right now we're focused on our group and our age group of what's going to be here to get ourselves ready to play in September.
Thank you.
All right, great. Any more questions in Toronto or on the phone, gang? How are we doing?
No further questions on the phone line, sir.
Okay. Sounds like we're silent in Toronto as well. So with that, I'd like to give a big thanks to our management group and head coach for joining us today, and thanks to the media for the great coverage of the sport overall. And if you have anything further, I think you all know how to reach me either by cell phone or email. Again, we look forward to the World Cup of Hockey. It's going to be spectacular, and that's all we have for today. Thanks very much, and have a good evening.